Since the beginning of the pandemic, when the world reeked of fear, Daystar became a beacon of light, becoming a source of hope where there seemed to be none. Then, as doctors and science experts were pushed aside for not allowing the narrative of mainstream media and big pharma elites, Daystar dedicated itself to creating room for uncensored truth and information to reach every home nationwide. Now, many vaccinated and unvaccinated are waking up to the hypocrisy, the tyranny, and the overreach of governmental and health authorities saying, enough is enough. The ground shakes as people rally together in a movement felt across the world, fighting for their careers, the well-being of their families, and God-given rights of generations to come, knowing that if you lose one freedom, you risk losing them all.
So why is the issue of freedom so important, and how should we move forward? I'd like for all of you to comment on that, because initially all of you are doctors, medical doctors, and I'm sure at the beginning of this pandemic you all aspired to help your patients, and now it's turned into something vastly different. Dr. McCullough.
It certainly has, and I had a chance to go on with podcaster Joe Rogan. And Joe has a wonderful video out, and he says, where you start to see censorship, watch out for your freedom, because your freedom is next.
Yeah.
So when did that become a reality to you in this race that you've been running?
I had a critical conversation with Dr. Gold. And early in the pandemic, well, I was so focused on hydroxychloroquine at the time, our only drug.
Yeah.
And she tried to wake me up, and she said, this is actually about freedom. And I just, I didn't process that.
Yeah.
And it was so clear she was right.
And so what did you say? And when did you wake up?
You know, I'm an ER doctor, right? But I'm also an attorney. So I think
Right.
perhaps I was a little bit more aware of constitutional liberties being at stake. And I wrote an article in April of 2020 that Mark Levin read on the air. And I said, it's freedom, not feardom. So I've always known. I said, this is a medical issue, but it's a constitutional crisis. So that was, I always knew. And I felt my job in the beginning was to make sure that the physicians who are awake and who are smart and the best doctors really that we had in the nation understood this was not really about a medical fight. And I can't believe this is really almost 2 years later, and there's any conversation anymore that this is about medical. It's so clear, I think, to everybody, right? We're waking up that this is all about freedom.
Obvious. Yeah.
What about you, Dr. Bartlett?
Where do you start?
You started in the emergency room.
Started in the emergency room. You're exactly right. A 48-hour shift 3 months into the pandemic, praying, God, what do I do if someone comes in here with COVID? And really distraught, because I was taking care of car wrecks and heart attacks and sewing people up, but I didn't have an answer for COVID. And so I went to the call room, took a cat nap, and I believe the Lord answered my prayer with something that worked, the budesonide, aspirin, and clarithromycin, and I was shocked how well it worked. That's where it started. But it was amazing to me after being a 4-term president of the County Medical Society, being the CBS medical expert in West Texas for over 20 years, being an advisor to Governor Rick Perry for 7 years and receiving the Meritorious Service Award as a result of that from the HHS Commissioner of Texas, that I was immediately a villain for saying good news, that we have something that could help people.
Right.
And so when I started the censoring, the suppressing, the messaging that was going around the world against something that was helping people, that was a shocker to me. That was a amazing experience.
Now, Dr. McCullough, a lot of people know your credentials, but some don't that are watching right now. Tell us a little bit about your background, and were you shocked at the pushback that you received, not only from doctors, but from boards that you're a part of?
It's stunning. I'm a practicing internist and cardiologist and maintain my boards in both specialties, and I'm also trained in epidemiology. I trained at University of Michigan, one of the best schools in the nation. I'm the most published person in my field, in the world, in history, on how the heart and kidneys interact with one another and how these organ systems work bidirectionally for survival of human beings. So I can tell you, when I applied my scholarship to COVID-19 and started to make significant advancements, building upon key observations by Dr. Bartlett and Dr. Gold and others, I knew I was on the right track. When I got a call from Peter Navarro in the White House saying, can you help me? I knew I was on the right track. And when I testified in the U.S. Senate and told America, along with Harvey Risch and George Fried, followed by Pierre Corey and J.J. Roster, that COVID-19 was a treatable illness. And I saw the response was a wall of censorship. It was actually vitriol and reprisal. I knew we were facing forces of unbelievable evil strength against the goodness in humanity.
In all of that, we are seeing they're taking away the rights of parents for their children. And you, as a cardiologist, you're seeing cardiac issues with young people, but yet they're taking the rights of parents away and letting children make that decision on their own.
Myocarditis or heart inflammation is the condition that the regulatory bodies agree. So the FDA agrees the messenger RNA vaccines cause heart damage. It is not debatable. It's not of any type of controversy.
Why does it cause heart damage?
It causes heart damage because the genetic material is loaded on lipid nanoparticles, and the nanoparticles then install the genetic material, which produces the spike protein. The spike protein is a foreign protein, not supposed to be in the body. In a paper by Avolio and colleagues, it's clear that the spike protein damages pericytes, these delicate cells that support the heart muscle cells and the capillaries, and causes heart damage. Now we have papers showing young boys in America, most recently by Gill and colleagues in Connecticut, take the vaccine, and they die 3 and 4 days later after the shot. No opportunity for the parents to save them. The initial presentation is death. The parents find the boys dead at home.
So there's 0 symptoms.
They didn't report any.
How old were they?
They were 16 and 17. The parents wisely got autopsies. The autopsies reviewed by the coroner, and then external pathologists from University of Michigan, University of Minnesota, they agree the vaccines are the proximate cause of death. I just testified in the U.S. Senate January 24th and the Pennsylvania Senate last week, and I said on both occasions, 1 death is too many.
Yes.
1.
Yes.
1. This idea of trying to normalize this, you know, the UK, Australia, and Canada have guidelines to say, well, this is how we can manage it, and this is how we should detect it. 1 case is too many. It's unacceptable. The vaccine should be pulled off the market.
You know, it's interesting because Florida's governor just came out and said that he's not going to recommend the vaccine for children, which is the first governor to do something against the CDC guidelines. Do you think other states will follow suit?
Governor DeSantis has a very capable Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo, MD, PhD, you know, wonder child who could do no wrong until he took that position, right? And now the media trashes him. But he's giving Governor DeSantis excellent advice. So it's very good to, like Scott Atlas, to get good advisors, you know, in place. So yes, Governor DeSantis came out and said it's official Florida policy not to give these shots to young people, obviously. So do I think? I think, yes, yes, I think other governors will come forward. And I think it's because you need to see that boldness, that courage, which then allows other people to walk through that same door. So I'm optimistic that some more governors will come out. But what I really want is I really want the parents to be educated. That's why your platform is so incredibly important. You've got the largest platform, and people, a lot of parents simply don't know.
Well, let's talk a little bit about something that has come out in the news. I got several emails from partners because we have the most informed partners around the world, and they send me every time somebody has an adverse event, every time there's a news article. And I saw Dr. Bartlett where Pfizer has had to release some important data that a lot of people would be interested in. I'll let any of you want to talk about that.
Pfizer gave information to the FDA to look at. And the FDA had to look at that information and say, yes, it looks like a good idea.
Was this before the shots were administered?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many documents is it? It's like so
it's
much.
50. I think it's 50,000 pages a month that are supposed to be released until they're all out. And so it's a lot of information, but basically it's the information that was given by Pfizer, the company, about their shot to FDA for the FDA to review and say, this is a good idea to let this out to the public.
For emergency use.
For emergency use, but that information, it's about informed consent, something that is a basic part of healthcare. As a doctor, if someone's going to have surgery or they're going to get a medicine or a shot, we tell them the risk and the benefits. And how can we inform a parent that there's this risk for your child, and here's the benefits if we don't have the information? And we were not given that information. As a matter of fact, on January 6th, I want everybody to remember January 6th was the day that the federal judge in Fort Worth said, you're going to have to give that information to the doctors and the scientists because they need that so they can give informed consent. They need the information.
Did Pfizer try to withhold the information?
So then I was at the second hearing when the FDA had their lawyers. They brought one in, their big guns in from D.C. to Fort Worth to try to stall this. And it was a second hearing, and I was there with Aaron Siri, who's a real hero as an attorney.
He's been on with us, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and in that hearing, the federal judge said, no, you're going to have to give that information to the doctors and to the public. That's not, you can't hide that for 75 years. You have to give that information.
Which is how long they wanted to wait. Well, the reason it was 75 years is because they said, they were trying to say, we don't have the capability to release all the documents, and so this is how many we can release, which will take 75 years. And by the time all the information is finally released, a whole generation of people will be dead.
Yet the FDA had the capability of reviewing it in about 100 days for the EUA approval.
Hello.
Yeah.
So this was obvious. It was an attempt to conceal the data from the American people. The FDA and Pfizer were pressed. And I can tell you what we've learned from the first tranche of data is explosive.
Well, let's just say quickly, like for those of you that are watching, so you get this. What happened is Pfizer submitted this to the FDA before the shots and said, well, this is what we found out from our studies, from our trials. And so all this information was documented. And so now, after all these people have gotten the shots and have all these adverse events, then we went to the court system and we said, we want to see what you found in your trials, if anything. And so they had to release this 33 pages, especially that they're talking about right now. And what did we find in those 33 pages?
Well, a large part of the information that was shocking to me is all the permanent damage to people with their immune system.
About 1,200.
About over 1,200 individual disasters that could happen as a result after the shot.
What were some of the things, Dr. Gold, that was listed in there?
There's so much neurologic damage. There's aneurysms, there's strokes, there's Guillain-Barré, neuritis. You know, there's terrible immune disorders. You know, exacerbations of multiple sclerosis. There's cancers that are occurring. I mean, I don't know if the cancers was
because
in
of the
people.
widespread uptake of genetic material. In a mosaic of cells, each person must be different depending on where the lipid nanoparticles go. We know they cross the blood-brain barrier. We know from autopsy studies the fingerprint of the vaccine is everywhere in the body. Over 1,200 distinct what's called adverse events of special interest. And they fall in 4 major categories: neurologic, cardiovascular, immunologic, and hematologic. And I can tell you, it looks like a disaster.
What is the thing in the vaccine that is causing all the damage?
The vaccine's code for the body to, in a very abnormal, disturbed way, produce the spike protein. The spike protein is the bud on the surface of the virus. It alone and by itself is a destructive protein. It damages organs and cells. It damages blood vessels. It causes blood clotting. In studies, it's shown to be oncogenic, meaning it interacts with specific cancer genes, and the list goes on and on.
Is that why there's so many blood things that are happening? Or the spikes, or is it literally like cutting you on the inside?
The spike protein strongly promotes blood clotting. That's the reason why in COVID-19 respiratory illness, there's all kinds of blood clotting complications during the syndrome and then afterwards. Remember, when someone gets COVID-19, the respiratory illness, later on, it can trigger heart attacks and strokes, blood clots. People are on blood thinners, and people know this. But with the vaccine, we think the dose of spike protein is far higher than the respiratory illness, and so all these are amplified.
Typically, if there's a problem, if there's 50 deaths, right, it's a black box warning, the thing is shut down. Like, it's not like we've never done this before with vaccines, right? The swine flu, they've done these things where they've shut down programs. So I've never asked you about this, but it's crazy, right?
I can tell you, I've chaired data safety monitoring boards, dozens of them. I've been told by the sponsor, working with the FDA, that if there's 5 unexplained deaths, the clinical trial shuts down. Post-marketing, like Dr. Gold said, that's exactly right, 50 deaths, 50 unexplained deaths. The program got shut down. With the swine flu pandemic, we got to 25 deaths. The program was shut down and ultimately rose to 43 deaths. There is zero tolerance for death after taking a injection. I don't care how good the injections are. I don't care how good the benefits are. There is zero tolerance for this. And the fact that it was allowed to continue, the fact that it was even allowed to be approved.
Yeah, how many
point.
deaths were in the trial? Wasn't over 1,200?
What came out in the briefing booklet was a few deaths in each arm. And once we got to the 6-month data, once we got to more FDA meetings, it started to become imbalanced. And Bobby Kennedy brought this out on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial at the DC Defeat the Mandates rally. He said the score that was in the briefing booklet at the time he gave that presentation was 21 deaths for Pfizer and 17 deaths for placebo. So we already had an imbalance. And what was going on in the public program is we were over 1,000 deaths in March of 2020. Within the first 3 months, we were far beyond any limits of acceptability.
And now, how many deaths do we actually know about?
I think at the VAERS website, it's over 20,000 months ago. And so over 20,000 at the CDC website.
I can tell you, I did my own VAERS query on the checkbox of death, which is on the initial report. So the initial report of death, that number, I did it myself, that number came out at 12,670. When we look at the open VAERS data overlay, which looks for death in anywhere in the vignette and in the follow-up reports, that number, as Dr. Bartlett correctly points out, over 24,000.
And we believe that it's vastly underreported.
There's
no doubt there are a lot of deaths that we will never know about.
The underreporting relationship is best pointed out now in a paper from Columbia by Pantazatos and Seligman. Using U.S. Census data and Vaccine Administration data, it's an ecological analysis, 20-week window, it could be as many as, through December of last year, of 187,000 Americans losing their life after the vaccine. That means an underreporting ratio of about 20.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about the study that just came out of Sweden that is just so alarming.
The news is buzzing out of Lund University, Malmö, Sweden. Marcus Alden is the first author. The first demonstration in a human hepatic or liver cell line that the Pfizer vaccine, in fact, reverse transcribes and installs DNA into the human genome.
Wow.
And so in simple terms, what does that mean, Dr. Bartlett?
Thank you for making it simple. So basically, there's an enzyme that can take that messenger RNA vaccine information and put it into the DNA of the person, into their DNA. And we were told that could not happen. So this is in a lab, but it's showing that you remember the vaccine is messenger RNA.
Yeah.
And we were told that that messenger RNA could not go into your DNA, but this is showing that in a lab it can.
And so what happens when it does, Dr. Gold?
Well, can I answer slightly different than your question?
Yeah.
So one of the fun things about the last couple of years being a doctor and lawyer is this is a very interesting opportunity, and I think we're going to be bringing another lawsuit because there's actually federal law that you cannot discriminate against people for genetic discriminations. I forgot the acronym. I think it's GINA, G-I-N-A. GINA, right? So this now opens the door to saying that if you're not allowing somebody in who chose not to get the shot, that you're actually engaging in genetic discrimination. So I think there's this Sweden study, I think, opens the door to a new type of lawsuit.
If you're pregnant and you have this done, can that then affect your baby?
Yes, see, this is the alarming finding. The CDC says on its website very explicitly, this will not change your DNA. The paper that came out of Sweden, now there'll be many more to confirm it, and the steps are to confirm it, to confirm that the entire code is installed, and then to actually confirm that it's expressed, meaning that the spike protein now is continuously expressed from human cells. But because the lipid nanoparticles are taken up everywhere, that means somatic cells in your organs, but also your gametocytes, actually the cells that actually are the sperm and the egg. If they are carrying it, that indeed means that, in fact, it could be passed to the daughter cells and
so that could be
embryo.
Open up for birth defects and all kinds of things. But the thing that I'm thinking about as a minister of the gospel is that, you know, the Bible says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. And it goes on to say they were eating, drinking, giving in marriage. Okay, that's always gone on. But what was it about Noah's time? That was when,
Genesis 6.
That's when the sons of God got with the daughters of men, and they messed up.
They were distorting God's creation.
And distorted God's creation and the image that we were created in. And to me, that is the more dangerous thing that I see here, that you're messing with God's creation. What about that?
Yeah, you know, God said everything should reproduce after its kind.
Yeah.
And so this is where in Genesis 6, there was hybrids that are reported. And so if you have different DNA, your DNA is what makes you. It's the code for who you are.
And this, you know, it is, I mean, we know, because obviously we're a Christian television network, we know that we're created in God's image, and that the way that there is a battle going on, good against evil, and the way the enemy wants to get back at God is through his creation. So that's a dangerous thing, Dr. McCullough, to think about something like this penetrating the DNA.
There's a distortion going on of the human body. The vaccines appear to be, in a myriad of ways, distorting human biology. In an analysis by McCullough and colleagues from Queens early in the pandemic, he was analyzing how are people dying after the vaccines. There was only 1,200 deaths, but the answer was it is truncating the life of our seniors. Our seniors are the ones dying early after the vaccine, the ones we wanted to save. And then we're seeing in the Department of Defense epidemiologic database, as Attorney Tom Rentz disclosed at the U.S. Senate testimony, it is accelerating all these other diseases, cancers, rheumatologic diseases, in the DMED database, strongly related to fetal loss, miscarriages and stillbirths, and cardiovascular and neurologic disease. It's almost as if anything that somebody has is going to be worsened by taking a vaccine.
So I have a question about that. So if we know that it does transmitting or shedding, what if you need to get a blood transfusion?
I am proud to say my name is on a letter with pathologists here in Dallas after we got report of a transfusion reaction to the American Association of Clinical Blood Banking and the American Red Cross that we were concerned early in the vaccine program that the blood supply is contaminated. Because someone could take the vaccine and literally walk in and get a unit of blood. In a paper by Elena Gatos and colleagues from Harvard, she showed that basically you can actually have circulating spike protein for 2 weeks. The response back from the organizations were, thank you for your concern. Nothing was done. The only thing I can tell your audience is there are enough seroprevalence studies now suggesting that the general blood pool is so loaded with COVID antibodies that hopefully spike protein is bound up, and that, in fact, the next transfusion won't be harmful. And I tell my patients, I got this question yesterday in the office. I said, listen, if you need a transfusion, take it. And probably, again, God is stepping in, and there is enough neutralizing antibodies to, in a sense, protect the blood supply. But the fact that our agencies were willfully blind to a blood supply concern is yet another example of global corruption going on.
And of a broken system.
A broken system.
Goodness.
Yes, so may I just share really quick? So in 2022, you know, what we saw was just so broken. I think when we look back, there's so much that supports that it's broken, but it's just completely unworkable. We saw corruption of massive, you know, I can't read the medical journals and believe what I read anymore. Just the corruption is incredible. So what we have to say, America's Frontline Doctors, we're bringing a new initiative, and we say healthcare is out, Gold Care is in. We're going to be bringing Gold Care Health and Wellness Centers because we want everyone to have an opportunity to find ethical, honorable doctors, right, who can actually help them, right? So that's what we plan to do.
And so these will be clinics with doctors that can treat patients the way doctors have universally treated people from doctor-patient relationship.
It's essentially primary care, urgent care, right? But these are ethical, honorable doctors that have no bias from big pharma, no bias from the government. There's no other incentive other than the doctor-patient relationship. So we put the doctor and the patient relationship front and center, and you can go to goldcare.com for more information.
You guys have really taken a chance on losing everything to speak for truth, but we know God is going to be with them. I ask you to pray for Dr. McCullough, for Dr. Bartlett, Dr. Gold. We love them and appreciate so much what they're doing. And I do want to say, you know, if you've had the vaccination, we love you. God loves you. And, you know, I've said it 100 times, God is bigger than a vaccination. And I think it's important for you to keep your immune system strong. But like Dr. McCullough and Dr. Bartlett and Dr. Gold said, don't get any more shots, or please pray before you get any more shots, because this is why we're sharing this information with you, so you can make an informed decision. If you decide you want to, that's between you and your God. And we say, God bless you. We're not ever going to tell you what to do, but we are going to offer information that is being censored. We are going to give you good doctors, intelligent doctors who know what they're talking about, and then you make the final decision. Well, we are out of time. As you've heard today, there are a lot of things that are happening and have happened that are raising a lot of concerns. The good news is that you can still take a stand. I want you to remember that God is always on the side of truth. And it is through him that your rights come, not from a government, not from a president, not from a state. They come directly from God. So I want you to continue to take in all the information you can. Let's preserve freedom for tomorrow's generation. Let's pray for those who are speaking out for truth. And again, as always, if there's a need in your life, that's why that toll-free number is on the screen. We have prayer partners that are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You call from all over the world, and we take that call seriously. You can also go to daystar.com, click on prayer if you'd like for us to pray for you today, especially if you're dealing with some adverse events. We want to pray for you, encourage you, and let you know that you're not alone. I think the most important message we can give you is that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind, and that fear will drive you to do things and make decisions sometimes that aren't correct. Well, I want to thank our guests for joining us at the table today. For more from Dr. McCullough, you can visit him online at truthforhealth.org. To find out more about Dr. Gold's work, be sure to check out americasfrontlinedoctors.org. And to keep up with the latest from Dr. Bartlett, you can find more information at budesonineworks.com. Thank you so much for watching. And to find this and all of our other uncensored COVID-related content, you can visit covid.daystar.com. It is a secure website that they cannot censor because they censor us on all the other platforms. I want you to be sure to tune in tomorrow as we take on some of your most asked questions from you, our viewers. And again, thank you for watching. Be encouraged today. We love you. Thank you, doctors. Thank you, ladies. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for today.